Good morning, how you doing? Yeah. Oh, how are you?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our regular meeting of the City Commission of the City of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. It is now 9:01 a.m. and we're ready to start our meeting. Would you call it to order, please?
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Present.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Present.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Present.
Honorable Chaz Glenn.
Here.
And Honorable Amanda Forster is absent at the moment. Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right. Morning. For a moment of silence this morning, since we just finished Mother's Day, let's remember our mothers. And for those of you who are fortunate enough to still have your mothers, and then for those who have lost their mothers, and think of them every day. So please, just 15 seconds of silent meditation. Okay, let's move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Everything. Please, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Indivisible.
Chance to review the agenda. Okay with it? Make a motion, please. Second that.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Chaz Glenn.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Aye. Carried unanimously. Well, yeah, time flies. It's that time of year again for Poppy Day, which is actually it's the whole month, right? But and especially for Memorial Day. So this morning I have a proclamation, and the proclamation is as follows. Whereas America is the land of freedom, preserved and protected willingly and freely by citizen soldiers, and whereas millions who have answered the call to arms have died on the field of battle, and whereas a nation at peace must be reminded of the price of war and the debt owed to those who have died in war. And whereas the red poppy has been designated as a symbol of sacrifice of lives in all wars. And whereas the American Legion Auxiliary has pledged to remind America annually of this debt through the distribution of the memorial flower. Now, therefore, I, Ralph Hessler, Mayor, on behalf of the City Commission of the City of Truth or Consequences, Sierra County, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim May 22nd, 2026 as Pop Day for the American Legion Auxiliary in Truth or Consequences, and ask that all citizens pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom by wearing the memorial poppy during the month of May, and especially on Memorial Day, Monday, May 25th, 2026. So, ladies, would you join me up front in front of the dais, please? Commissioners, would you come up front for a quick photo? And I'll give them the proclamation. Well, thank you so much. I swear you look the same every year. We've been doing this for a long time, so thank you for your service and thank you for doing it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We all do. Thank you all. And we'll be at Walmart, Johnny B's, Bullocks, and Pat's at the Lake. So if you all want to come out and support us, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
One more. One more. All right.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Again.
Okay, let's move on to public comment. We have two folks on our roster this morning. June Russett, good morning.
Good morning, commission, manager, everyone, community members. My name is June Russett. I'm a regional planting coordinator with Tree Mexico. I understand that the comprehensive plan is to include shovel-ready projects. Tree New Mexico has a budget for trees, many volunteers, and about 40 shovels ready to plant. We are excited to partner with the city to further green our community and to provide shade to public spaces. We are available for professional training and public education on how to properly maintain our current canopy, as well as any trees that are added. If you don't know, we've planted 400 trees in our community and also given away an additional 400 since November 2020. We know that the grant, all that we are seeking is a plan for tree-specific irrigation in the parks or wherever trees are to be planted. We know of a grant that the city might be eligible for to fund irrigation that we would be happy to help write as well. With the Levitt Music grant funded and many upcoming concerts taking place in Ralph Edwards Park, I can think of no better place there and no better time than this upcoming fall or next spring to plant trees. When prioritizing distribution of funds, I recognize that water projects are going to rank highly, and rightly so. Shady public spaces should be right close behind that, as trees provide many health and beautification benefits to our community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Russett. Okay, Isa.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner, City staff. Becca Isa with some quick updates from Main Street to your C. A week and a half ago, we had a really successful fiesta. We really are appreciative of all the efforts of everyone in the community that went into making it a successful fiesta, even though we were a little bit crowded and limited in space because of the Foch project. But we had amazing people on the fiesta committee and then people all throughout the community that did various events, as you here know, as you were all very involved in the weekend. We also really appreciate the volunteers that came out and helped, and the various city departments that were very involved in making the event successful, from the police department, community services, parks and rec, the electric department, the streets department, and I'm probably forgetting someone, but we really had great support from the city in making the event successful. So we're appreciative of that. So we're just at the beginning of a big summer and fall season of concerts. We've finalized the lineup for the first Fridays, the Dancing in the Streetlight concerts downtown. That'll be the first Friday of every month from about 6 to 9:30 p.m. near Healing Waters Plaza. The July concert is hopefully going to have a small Independence Day parade right beforehand. And then going into the fall, we'll be having a Levitt series at Ralph Edwards Park. We've gotten approval from the Levitt Foundation on the headliners that we're hoping to bring in. So we're working on getting contracts with them, and then we'll make an announcement. It's going to be a wide variety of music. We have especially Zydeco, bluegrass, Americana, EDM, Latin fusion. So what I'm telling people, you may not love every single show. It may not be exactly what you're into, but it's all going to be really high quality concerts that are intended to bring people out and expose people to free shows and community. And events are not the only thing we have going on, even though it feels like it right now. We just got a grant from the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance to do a social media training, which is going to involve intended for businesses to help them effectively market themselves via social media. And then also with the idea that having multiple businesses do this will help the district and the community as a whole by showcasing on social media what we have going on. We're also looking forward to partnering with Tree New Mexico on doing a tree survey using New Mexico Main Street assistance. And hopefully working on some things with the Healing Waters Discovery Trail. So lots of projects going on, and we're excited to just keep doing what we can to benefit and improve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that concludes our public comments. Let's move on to ordinances, resolutions, and zoning. Item E1, discussion action. The Jaramillo Accounting Group is here today to report on the recent audit, which is resolution number 53, 2526. And we should also get the results. So do you want to introduce them, or?
I think Scott is here from her. Already come up, introduce himself and present to the commission.
Right, sir.
I was looking for him and Jocelyn stepped out and she brought him back. She's like magic.
I didn't look at the agenda. I didn't look at the agenda when we were to the regular building where the finance department was. So I'm here.
All right, thank you.
So good morning, Commission, Mayor. My name is Scott Eliason. I'm a partner with Jaramillo Accounting Group. And the state audit rule requires that after the report is released, that the auditor, the results of the audit. I'll get a little quicker here. And the report was released at the end of March, and we collection form which was due March 31st. And so here we need to go over the results of the audit. I believe everybody did get a copy of the financial statements and had an opportunity to go through them. And so we're required to just discuss the opinions and discuss the audit findings, if there are any, which we have a few to go over today. And so I'll just jump right into the report or our presentation. So some things to talk about with communications. We're required to have a two-way communication. Governance, we did, of course, have several meetings with the mayor during the course of the audit. And we're required to, any issues that come up, we do have discussions and communicate that we are independent. Some of that communication goes back to the audit engagement letter, and some of it the entrance conference, and then the various meetings. So we are independent of the city. We don't have any relationships that would impair our independence. So let's just talk about the scope of the audit. The audit itself includes sort of three components, the way I would look at it. We have the financial statement audit, which results in this 100-page report. We do have also what's called the single audit. So the city does receive federal awards in enough of an amount that triggers what's called a single audit, so that we look at specific programs, and that's listed in here of what we end up auditing based on size and rotation requirements and risk assessments. And so we did do a single audit. And then the state audit rule also requires the auditor to look at a whole number of compliance areas, everything from, did you pay para timely to, procurement, travel and per diem, If you have gas cards or purchasing cards, we look at samples of those. So various compliance requirements, of course, capital assets, did you properly dispose of capital assets? Do you record them properly? So there's some things related to capital assets in the audit rule. And then in the past, historically, the Housing Authority has been also reported in here as a component unit. We started the audit out with the conversation with the other auditor of the component unit of the Housing Authority. And he stated, why is this being part of the audit? There isn't, it doesn't meet the criteria. So we did go through the criteria of the Housing Authority, which has caused the audit to be late in the past, and determined that Housing Authority should not be presented. They already present their own set of financial statements and they're independent enough of the city itself. So that was removed from the scope of the audit. So we wouldn't, as the auditors of the city, with the Housing Authority, other than reporting elements. So that's no longer in there. So there is no cause in the future if they're late on their audit to cause the city's audit to be late. We do take a risk-based approach to auditing. I would say that just looking at this, there's some aspects we should talk about. So there's governmental accounting standards boards, or the GASBs. Will be this year, GASB 103 will be implemented. This last year under audit, GASB 101 and 102 is implemented. 101 was on compensated absences and accruing of some estimated sick leave that was done, included in these financial statements. And then 103 changes some presentation for this next year ending 2026, which, you know, we're almost there. We did look at the internal control structure, tested the internal control structure. We have a few comments, I think, related to the internal control structure. We do look at the risks and go through that process of identifying any risk. You know, we look at things like, is there a potential for management override of control, appropriate segregation of duties? We look at all these risks. That kind of comes down to our audit approach, which is a risk-based approach. I think most auditors do a risk-based approach because it would be literally impossible to, you know, audit every single transaction because there are thousands and thousands of transactions within that make up the internal control structures. We pull samples, statistical samples, lots of samples. I think Jocelyn could attest to that. The cash receipts cycle, looking at the cash disbursement cycle, which would be sort of those operating disbursements. Of course, there's the payroll cycle. There's financial close and reporting, which includes things like journal entries and bank reconciliations. The city has a number of bank accounts, so you know they have this process every month of going through and reconciling the bank accounts to the general ledger. I think one thing that probably adds complexity for the city is that they have different types of funds. So within the financial statements, you'll see what's called enterprise funds. Those are reported on a full accrual basis. Those are things that you know, based on revenue like fees that make it a fund. So you'll see, for example, the electric utility. That's an enterprise fund. Solid waste, just a number of things that collect fees, and there's a number of those types of funds. And then there's a number of what we call, you know, just regular funds that are on a cash basis throughout the year. The different funding sources. Of course, there's the general fund where a lot of the activities run through. So, you know, it's not uncomplex to manage this process internally from the city, because there are so many activities that go on within the city. So we do other approaches with the audit. We direct test, we confirm the bank balances, sampling, of course, lots of sampling, and just other tests that we do to ultimately come to the conclusion. The audit is not designed for fraud. So that should be a takeaway for everybody, that the auditors are not engaged to detect fraud. However, that being said, if there are fraud risk factors, we do follow up on fraud risk factors. So the timing of the audit, we did some work on the internal control structure in August and then again in December. Completing August, December, and January, financial statements in January. The report was released on, submitted January 20th and released by the state auditor's office after their desk review of the financial statements. So that process got pushed out a little bit this year. And the reason why it got pushed out is the federal government issues what's called a compliance supplement every year. And that compliance supplement are for the federal programs. And normally that comes out in May or June. And then they and start the testing, and that compliance supplement to some degree dictates how the auditor is to test certain federal programs. And so because of the fact that it got pushed out and actually did not show up until the day after Thanksgiving, but the state auditor had to make a decision before that. So the state auditor pushed out the deadline on all the audits across the state. I think it was back in October. So that auditors could take the time when the new compliance supplement comes out and ensure that they've done the appropriate testing. I don't anticipate that it's never happened before. I've been doing these single audits since the early 90s, and this is the first time that compliance supplement it ended up being very late. So a thing to talk about here within the report, there's a couple of opinions. I'm going to just discuss those opinions. There's an audit opinion up front, and that audit opinion talks about a number of things. But I think the key takeaways would be one, that we did issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. And then two takeaways that the auditor has responsibilities as far as the audit goes and the financial statements, and the city has responsibilities. So the city's responsibilities are to design an effective internal control structure and ensure that they've done the appropriate amount of work to ensure that they're complying with laws and regulations. And so they take ultimately, for these financial statements, they take ultimately the responsibility for the financial statements, even though we as the auditors were engaged to assist in putting it together. So it comes from the city schedules and documents that they provide to the auditor, and then the auditor goes ahead and prepares the financial statements. I would say it's pretty consistent with the prior year as far as the presentation and disclosure goes. So if you looked at these financial statements against the prior year, I think it would be pretty close, pretty consistent. Then of course we're required to report towards the back. There's another opinion that talks about the compliance with federal programs under the Uniform Grant Guidance. And then on the very far right-hand side, you see that there's another report. We have lots of acronyms. GAGAS is Generally Accepted Government Auditing Standards that talks about internal control and compliance and other matters. So any audit findings that we have would be reported in summary fashion there, and then reported in the back. Another aspect of the audit is what's called materiality. So depending on the fund type and the amount of transactional flow dollars, we would determine the materiality. Generally, we would use expenditures as a basis for materiality. And I would say, you look at we go through also this process of determining what in fact is a major fund. So in the back, there's non-major funds or smaller funds behind the footnotes, and up front, there's larger funds, the major funds. And that's based on materiality. So we would take some percent of expenditures and say, okay, here's our materiality. And if there's something that's wrong, that's over materiality, certainly needs to be adjusted. Under materiality, there's some other breakpoints we would look at and determining, what might need to be posted that wasn't posted. Again, most of these funds the city maintains on a cash basis, and they get converted not only from a cash basis to what we call modified accrual, for the presentation of the funds, and the modified accrual picks up the payables and receivables. But then up front, you've got a balance sheet and income statement for the entire citywide. And so that's those citywide statements are on full accrual. Plus, as I mentioned, those funds that collect fees like the airport and, utility and solid waste, those things are also presented as up front for the major funds and some in the back for the minor funds. So there's a lot of information in these financial statements, but I think the takeaway is the city has a lot of funds to maintain. It's a lot of work to go through. The city is reconciling these funds every month, making sure things are posted correctly into the right fund, into the right category, into the right budget category. But ultimately produces the cases for the audit. So here's some communication that we're required to report on. And, I'll just go through them. So the observations on the significant accounting practices, we did have some time that we spent on financial close and reporting. I think we have a finding on that. Some difficulties had to do with capital assets and accruals. We did work through that, but there is a comment in the findings. Uncorrected misstatements, we couldn't get capital assets to quite tie out. So I think that there is some additional work to do. We'll talk about that. Disagreements. So I think the fundamental, if we had a disagreement, it would be over the process of what should the audit team as far as pulling the information together. And I think that we can't be part of the internal control structure. So we can't go in and say, okay, we're going to go grab what we think are all the accounts payables. And the city doesn't maintain most of their funds on an accrual basis. So those accounts payables have to be added in. So getting a list of those, is who does that, the auditor or the auditee? And it should be the auditee that pulls all that information together in a format that simply the auditor just posts in a journal entry to change the basis of accounting from cash basis to modified accrual. Not aware of any other consultation, and you have some findings. Let's talk about the findings, because that's, I think, the primary thing to talk about today. So in the prior year, there were two findings. One was repeated, one was resolved. The cash disbursements controls were repeated, and I'll just go through those. Within the financial statements on page 88, there's just a discussion about this repeated finding, which I see has been carried for 3 years in a row. And that has to do with the purchase orders approved after the invoice date. So, the proper process would be to start with the requisition, which then causes procurement to set forth a purchase order. And then the goods or services are delivered and the invoice is approved and paid, matched up to the purchase order, the requisition, sort of all together. And that didn't happen in a sample that we took, a statistical sample of 40. There were 5 of those that didn't have purchase orders. I think that's a pretty easy fix just to strengthen that process. The second piece, the second finding, which is on page 89, has to do with what we believe to be inadequate inventory controls and unsupported inventory balances. So there was definitely some work to do with inventory and the reconciliations of the inventory at year end, and probably throughout the year, inventory should be adjusted. And so that was our comment on that. Management did identify inventory controls as an issue before the audit process even started. The next comment has to do, finding number 3 on page 90, has to do with information technology general controls. We noted that the IT equipment was not comprehensively tagged or tracked, was not a functioning firewall in place during this year ended June 30th of 2025. So remember, we're almost a year back, and some of these things go back farther than a year, back up to almost 2 years ago. So you have to take some of these things, with a grain of salt if you've already corrected those, but just notice that we as the auditor are reported to conditions that occur during the year and at year end, depending on the type of situations that happen. So IT controls certainly needed to be improved. It talks about backup, server access, rooms, camera, cyber security, So there were a number of things I think that needed to be improved in that area. And again, management did identify that as a concern before the audit was started. Financial closing report. The enterprise funds should be on an accrual basis for purposes of the audit. So there were some controls here that I think could be enhanced and improved upon with financial close and reporting. There are some policies and procedures related to cash handling, cash receipting, dispersing, record keeping. The last big revision was done, well, you see 2011, now it's 2026 or 2025 for the audit. So, it's been 15 years since some of these things were not updated. Current practices such as ACH receipts, electronic disbursements, credit card acceptance are not in the written policies. Probably back in 2011, some of those things really didn't exist or existed in small transactional flow. So that's just a comment on updating policies and procedures. The city, as you can see, is actively updating policies and procedures. Cash handling and security is the next finding on page 93. So we did a walkthrough. We noted that the vault and cash was not consistently locked. We didn't notice any missing cash, but I think just improvement of cash controls and vault usage. The last finding here is on capital asset records, and I think that there's some opportunities to make some changes with the capital asset process and reconciliation schedule and use of the capital assets module. So there's just some opportunity here to really implement a standardized capital asset tracking process that I don't think maybe hasn't been there as good as it can be. We actually, as auditors, this was years ago, we came down and did a project for the city when Juan Fuentes was, I think, the city manager. And we drove around town for like 3 or 4 days and documented and tracked every single road grader and every single piece of equipment, went through all the buildings and to get the inventory, the capital asset control detail up to date. And the auditor was unwilling to issue an opinion on capital assets. But that was like 15 or probably 10 years ago that we did that. And of course, we did have, on page 95, we did have an exit conference to go over the results of the audit and talk about these things in more detail. So those are the things we're required to talk about. I'll just sort of summarize. The financial statement audit had an unmodified or clean opinion. The federal awards audit had an unmodified or clean opinion. We did have some audit findings. I think that's typical. The first, you use the prior auditor, I think, a number of years. Usually when a new auditor comes in with a new look at things, there will be more audit findings. I think that, the city will go forward and resolve these issues, these findings. So I'm confident of that. I know they're working on these or have already cleared some of these findings. As mentioned, a number of these findings were already sort of self-identified during the fiscal year under audit, but we as auditors, we're still required to report those things. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner? Manager Whitehead, do you have any further clarification or any additions to anything that was discussed?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for this. Thank the JAG and your firm for being here and completing the audit for us. Again, I think we would comment that a new process, this year, new financial team, both with Jocelyn running the financial office and me coming in at 6 months. So definitely expected that we would have a few findings. Pleased to understand that the financial statements themselves are in proper order. We were made aware of an accounting error, a number error in the audit, and the audit team will go back and work and correct that. They had posted 2 revenue sources to be exactly the same for 2 different enterprise funds.
Yes,
So we spoke.
capital statement.
Yes, sir. And we spoke with the auditor and they immediately understood, found that and said we'd get that correction done. So that'll be taken care of. I think as it relates to, as I look at it, I'm going to look at what are the findings. I think Jocelyn would agree the same and begin working. And, we were fortunate the communication along the road kept us going So just again, in this, would like to identify, kind of gonna go over the findings and kind of reaffirm the, our position and the things that we found to be critical. I think the repeat finding of the purchase orders being done in front, we would agree. We did find, Jocelyn certainly found some issues when she came in and has implemented good processes. I think it feels really good right now in the finance office to get a PO. That process has caught on and everybody's functioning really well. We don't seem to, we feel really confident that we're going to get through that. I would point out that one of the corrections that we've made that will solve in the particular, the finding is about 1.2 million. 1 million is one transaction. And it happened where the city commission, through a bid process, awarded a contract. Everything went forward. There were some accounting issues, different sources. It took a minute to get that into the system. When the PO was finally issued, work had already started. And so the contractor, when they submitted their first payout after the purchase order was issued, had dates in there that were before the PO. So technically the work did start before, but it was a situation. And what we've done to correct that, right, is now when we come to you, we get permission to do the entire process up front. We award the contract, you approve the contract, you approve any approvals that need to go so that the budget could be adjusted. That particular transaction also required a budget adjustment resolution to correct, which created just a timing issue. But clearly a real situation that did happen, but everything was, again, in order. And I think we've taken the steps to correct that. Certainly the rest of the, I would say, come from really the new audit and having a new fresh set of eyes take a look at us. The IT items, I would remind you that we didn't have that finding before, and those issues probably existed before. So that auditing team might not have opportunity or dug in as hard as this do, right? So that new set of eyes has given us a better and a fresh look to find these particular issues. And again, we've worked on that. We understand the obligation. We've started with an IT policy, so we'll begin to clean any of those up. And so I would stand for any questions if anything. Won't kind of go over all of them. I think we responded at our exit conference with the auditors. We had good conversations, definitely at the end to put our items that we need to correct. Okay, thank you.
I've read all the conditions and our responses, and I'm pretty satisfied with most of the responses. Are there any conditions here that we're not going to be able to meet over this next year? Are you concerned with anything in particular, or are we going to be okay?
I can put a lot of pressure on Jocelyn. She'll get them done. No, I'm just kidding. I think the one that has us be the most concerned, and I've not focused on it, and I know finance is going to, the capital assets, right? And my concern is the city should have been taking care of that. And certainly if we paid an audit firm to come in 10 years ago and kind of set that back on track, I've asked Jocelyn to kind of look at our software system right now and see what offers. She presented some stuff to me yesterday on those opportunities. So I think we have to take the time. And the reason that gives me the most concern is we have a lot of assets, and then we have to figure out the process to go again, do potentially another capital assets report, or do we get our departments to take the time to do so? That one's probably the one that's the most concerning to me, to get that. And then part two would be the accrual. So I do agree. I spent some time with the state auditor. We spoke in depth about the process because it did feel like, again, the city's been going through audits for a long time, and we were unaware, if you will, or unsure of the process to change our cash accruals, our cash process to accrual. And the state auditor is going to send us some training, and we'll probably go up and take care of that. So that'll be probably the most technical part of us understanding how do we take at the end of the year, transfer our cash into the accrual, make sure we have the right information so that then we can hand off this to the auditors, if you will. And it would appear that the previous auditor firm must have assisted in creating a process for us to change those and get them into accrual. And it wasn't as critical as, again, the new set of eyes said. We really, I think, major concerns that Jocelyn and I would share.
Just on a personal note, this is probably the most stressful that I remember going through in a while. And it was some things that were given that we had no control over, some deadlines and things of that nature. And I'm not in the habit of doing things on the 11th hour, and that was kind of stressful for us, having to go through it at the last minute to approve some things. And so I'm hoping down the road that we can get ahead of these things a little bit more. I can't really put the blame on anybody in particular. I think it was a combination of things that happened, but it was a difficult situation, a difficult audit, and I'm glad we got through it. I appreciated the new eyes because it gave us an idea of things that hadn't been looked at as closely as they should have been in the past. So thank you for that. And anytime you have a new audit firm that comes in, I think that will happen. But we got through the process, and my fear was that we would not have an audit and get through it, and then that would hold up future attempts to get funding and things of that nature. So I really applaud our staff and your firm on getting us through that process. Like I said, it may have been difficult, but we got through it, and it was important. So thank you guys for those efforts.
Yeah, Mayor, and I would just really echo that. Jocelyn may have a echo. For me, the two most important things, timely, because that's critical. When we go to apply funding in any project, the legislature or any of the funding, they want to see our audit and they want to see that it's filed timely. That's critical. As we go to meetings, I see a lot of agencies and a lot of communities that they're having issues and they're having to ask for waivers because they're not filed timely. So kudos to the staff. I know they worked really hard. I know the firm worked really hard. And, when I talked to the firm early in January, they agreed to me that we would get it timely and they nailed it. So we definitely do that. And then part two, the second most important is the findings, right? What's there that we're not seeing? Because we just, the staff just goes through it. We do it and we do it a lot. And as Scott indicated, it's a lot of transactions and so it's really seeing that and understanding it and getting an opportunity then to clarify it. And then our goal, I told Jocelyn when I came in, when one of our very first meetings is our goal is, to have a clean, unmodified audit with zero findings. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. How we get that, it's going to be about understanding what's wrong and then agreeing to fix it. So but kudos to the team. Everybody got through it. We have a good audit and we'll improve on it. So with that, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, Scott, for coming on and presenting today. As he mentioned, some of the findings were in that fiscal year that we couldn't revert back to when I got here, with some of the things that had already been taking place and corrections. So I'm confident those will go away with our next audit. My concern is the capital and the assets. The city hasn't fully utilized Tyler, as we've discussed in the past. And so I reached out to Tyler to see if there was a program that we can implement in the system. And there is, but we have to purchase that because we haven't been using it. Perhaps. So that's one of the steps. And then as Jad reached out to another audit firm that I'm comfortable with, get a quote from them to come in. I feel like if we do a complete new updated report with the firm, we could start fresh and we can knock out those findings. So that's kind of moving forward is the vision that I have for future audits. And I think the city staff has been very gracious and they work really well with our team and communicate better, I would say, from when I first started. And we're getting to where they're comfortable asking questions and they're getting the clarifications they need in order to keep from having purchases done correctly and contracts done correctly. And it was just a new way of streamlining things that I don't think were in place before. So that will be the catch and it'll continue to the future.
I just have one comment as a former city employee who used to have to catalog an entire facility with a piece of paper and a pen. I'm really excited to see the management response in here, moving into a digital way of tracking these things that is accessible by all departments. Because I think it'll make it a lot easier in the long run to be able to track what we have and where it's at and the value and calculate the depreciation and so forth. So it looks really good to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? All right. If so, I'll entertain a motion regarding item E1. Approval of resolution number 53, 2526.
I'll make a motion to.
I second.
Honorable Inga Hopner,
Aye.
Honorable Charles Glenn, Honorable Ralph Pastor, Honorable Destiny Nguyen.
Aye.
Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Head back.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, sir.
I just want to mention one more thing.
Yes, sir.
So the financial statements here for a city, these are more complex, I think, than the normal smaller city because of all these different funds that having electric, for example. And so you could compare this against a bigger city and just be more transactions. So financial statements, as I mentioned, they're more complex than you would expect to see. And so there's just, a lot to be done consistently by the accounting department. I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Travel safe.
Only Commissioner Forrester, see if she'll join us.
Oh,
Commissioner Forrester, how are you?
good. How are you guys?
We're good. Thank you for coming on board with us. We're getting ready for item F1. Discussion action for public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 773, authorizing the issuance of City of Truth or Consequences to Mexico for System Improvement Revenue Bonds, which are Series 2026A in the principal amount of $2,673,000 for the purpose of construction financing. I think that's enough, he said, and your head is here today to present that, but that we asked you to come on board is that we have to have 80% of our commission approve it. If we do approve it, and we can't do it with 3 folks or 4 folks, we have to have everybody on board. So thank you for calling in.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, nice to see you all again this morning. So this ordinance relates to the second of the USDA projects that are going on, the WISPY 2 that you may have heard of, which is related to water system improvements and extension and replacement of water lines. So the USDA has approved that in July of 2024 and authorized a loan in the amount of $2,673,000 and then 2 grants totaling $8,200,000. So the key point about today relates to that loan amount of $2,673,000. The USDA requires that you get what they call interim financing to provide funds to do the construction. And once that's all completed, they will come in and they will purchase the city's long-term bonds to pay this interim loan off. And so I'll hit that very quickly. So what is approves the loan with Bank of the Southwest for this interim financing to do the actual construction on these water line improvements, and approves it in the amount of $2,673,000 at a rate of 5% over a 3-year period. So that's a 3-year maturity, which ties to the extent of what they think the outside would be of the construction. The accrual of the interest at 5% only happens as you draw those funds down. So let's say we close this a month from now. The interest on the $2,673,000 doesn't immediately start accruing on that total amount. It will start accruing based on the time you draw the principal amount down over time. And the interest is not due quarterly or semi-annually or annually. It's due with the principal one time at the maturity of this note in 3 years. So those are both benefits to the city. The pledge that you are using to pay this back, unlike the GEO bonds, which you did a few months ago, is limited solely to the water system revenues that are produced through service fees and customer fees in that system. The key point here is this is at 3 years. When this is repaid, or when we redo it with the final USDA bonds at maturity of this loan, once the construction is done, that loan will be over 40 years at 2.125%. So a significant reduction in the principal over 40 years. Would not find in other types of lending. It is a subsidized form of financing through the USDA. Those are very attractive terms. So this 5%, which isn't real, this is a fairly recent market indication. You will be substantially lower than that when you ultimately refinance this with the USDA bonds. And at that point, also the 8,227,000 of grants. So the total project looking at about $11 million. You're only needing to borrow 73. So that's a nice aspect to it in terms of the size of the grant. Happy to answer any questions about it. This will be the step where you approve if you decide to do that, approve the ordinance, and then we'll move toward closing on the interim financing with Bank of the Southwest, which we've been doing on the other WISB one. We've done some interim financing with them, and they've been a good partner for the city to get these done.
Thank you for that presentation.
Absolutely.
Very clear. Any comments?
Mr. Muirhead gave me a good education yesterday. We had a good conversation because you remember the history was when we were here a couple months ago, we only had 3 commissioners, and we decided we need to recess and republish it and so forth. And the question was in my mind was, I remembered there's actually a statute that says that in most ordinances, if you have a majority who's voting in favor of a proposition, it could pass it with just three commissioners. So I was wondering, we had 3 commissioners that one day, wouldn't that be sufficient? But then Mr. Muirhead pointed out to me there's a different statute under 3-31-4, which talks about municipal revenue bond works. We have to have 75%, in excess of 75% of the people the commissioners to vote in favor. That's why we need to have 4 people here. So that was for future reference. I want to let you know that's the reason why there was a little bit of an issue in my mind about really how we had to proceed today.
Yeah. Public money is always a higher bar, basically, when you're doing that, and then incurring debt on behalf of the public and borrowing money on behalf of the public. When you have a GO bond, you have a vote of the public. And so you have, as a governing body, you have that ultimate, like, hey, they approved this, I'm good. As a revenue bond where you don't have the vote of the public, they raise the bar to say, we need a significant portion of the elected officials really to be on board with this borrowing. And that's why it has that higher bar.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
All right, so this is a public hearing. So I will open up this meeting for public discussion. The 5-minute rule applies. If anyone wishes to speak either for or against this ordinance, please come up and do so now. Takers. Okay, we'll close the public meeting. And we've heard of the discussion and the presentation. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve bond ordinance 773 as presented.
Motion and second.
Honorable Chaz Glenn.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hopper. Honorable Amanda Forster.
Very good. Thank you. Structure capital improvement plan. This big presentation, please, on what we're doing here today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, Mayor. I'm here today to talk about how we get capital funding for infrastructure projects in New Mexico and to gather public input. Thank you. So the ICIP, or the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, is a 5-year planning tool that lists infrastructure priorities. So things like roads, utilities, public buildings, parks, things that we use every day. The ICIP matters to New Mexico because it's required for capital outlay funding. So cities and municipalities submit their top 5 projects, and the top 3 are considered for funding by state leaders. And while this is not the only means of funding, it's a very important one. But there's also funding opportunities for other projects on this list. So while the top 5 or the top 3 are, sometimes ICIPs have lots of projects on their list. For example, I think this year we've got over 10, I know for sure. So projects on the list have a critical need for shovel-ready projects. So shovel-ready basically means that we have identified what the costs are, what the timeline is,
what the, what the timeline is, how it will be maintained in the future. So that's basically what it means for shovel ready. And so we need to have that information when we apply for funding. So the ICIP helps us apply for funding for kinds of projects. So there are some requirements for projects that are going to be on the ICIP. For example, they have to improve or build upon existing infrastructure, and it must last 10 years or longer. It must be ready to go, meaning shovel ready. We've got to have all the information before we can apply for that funding. Solid cost estimates, things like that. It must cost over $10,000. And we also have to identify other funding sources. So if we don't get capital outlay or that funding expires, we have to have sources that we've identified for additional funding. And also, it's got to benefit the entire region, not just a small section, or not just, it says think bigger than your backyard, and I would say so. So it's got to be a benefit to the entire public. In developing the ICIP, before we put a project on the ICIP list, it's got to have the realistic cost estimates, and then a plan for future maintenance and upkeep. So what is that going to look like? How is that going to be funded? We've got to have all that information so that state leaders can make decisions on whether or not these projects qualify for that funding. And then we set priorities, and the city decides, the city and the people of the city, everyone decides what projects are ranked based on public health and safety, urgency or emergencies. Sometimes there are federal, state, and local requirements, and also project timelines. So this ensures that the most critical needs are addressed first. And how projects get chosen. So community input is very important. So community helps to inform decision makers on what projects are important to them. The data that we have helps to identify urgent needs and current funding options, and also past projects that were on the ICIP that may not have gotten funding. Maybe they have moved up the list. And then city officials and partners, regional partners. So then the city leader ranks those projects based on the benefit of truth or consequences. And that's all I have. And
Public comment. This is for the commissioners will not be involved at this stage. We have an agenda item down the road where we're going to be able to interject what our comments are going to be. So at this time, it is 58 a.m. I'm going to open it up for public for ICIP. Do we have anyone that wants to speak on ICIP? I do have one person signed up. That's Ms. Sloan.
Kathleen Sloan, 708 Levebo, Williamsburg. He mentioned this last year. I'm concerned that the bridge across the river is divided into two parts. There's one for the walking bridge and one for a vehicular bridge. And the vehicular bridge is to carry water and wastewater piping, I guess, underneath it, to land that was annexed in 1996, I believe. So I did a little bit of research, and it said that in 1997, if you and the city duty, if they to annex land, to provide utilities within a quote unquote reasonable time. So nothing's happened since that land was annexed. And I believe the developer's name is Brown. It's the Brown bit. And that was the reason given when the feasibility study was done 4 years ago now. There was a feasibility study done to it seemed to be all about, can we make money by building along the river? And should, so we have no obligation since the annexation precedes the law change. And since the developer has, I think, if subdivision plans were ever submitted, they were only good for 5 years. It's been longer than that. The city has no obligation to provide utilities across the river. And with the state of our current, high cost of fixing the water and wastewater utilities, I don't understand why this is on the ICIP and why it's divided into 2 parts. And there were 2 public hearings after the feasibility study was completed, and it filled this hall twice, and there was only negative comment. We do not want the city to develop across the river, was what was stated very vehemently by the public in 2 public hearings. So it's still on there, and I don't think the people should build it and they will hopefully should be, if a developer wants the bridge, they should pay for it. And so I am asking for an explanation. I hope later in the agenda, someone will explain that to me. And so my 2 questions are, why is it divided into 2 projects, which is much more costly to the public? And why are we doing the vehicular? Why are we trying to get water and wastewater utilities across the river? Thank you.
Any other takers for the public hearing? Yes, sir, go ahead.
My name is John Diaz. I'm a retired highway and traffic engineer, and I'm having problems of, you have, and that's great, but the management of these projects is lacking. Did you know that the 2 main entrances to the hospital were closed off without any signs or detours? Now, when we're talking hospital, seconds count. And if a person has to find his way to another entrance to the hospital, that's inexcusable. The other problem I'm having is signage. The city is totally lacking in signage. The city has to follow state law. State law says that you have to have the proper signage out. If your men are doing pothole repairs, they have to have signage. If somebody hits them, it's not that person's fault if there's no signage. It's the city's fault, and the city will be sued, and you can't afford it. Now, I did with the federal government 25 years as a traffic engineer. And it breaks my heart when I see your shops out there working are just out there. There's no signage. They get hit. You feel bad for the person, but then the person that hits them has to live with that. I think it's fair. It doesn't cost that much to have a couple of signs out warning people. I, as a resident of the city for over 20 years, and my wife is from here, so I'm acquainted with this city. Davis Fleck, my wife is the Fleck, so I have been associated with this city off and on for a long time. the management of the Foch Street project. I have yet to understand what is going on, why it's taking so long. It is an irresponsible project. Nobody knows what's going on. They have to keep going back, tearing up because, oh, they found a water line. That should have been taken care of way back at the beginning. And then nobody knows it's going to be a one-way or two-way street. And so you have people wondering, how am I going to get to town, get to Main Street? It's, you know, even the newspaper did not let people know that the hospital entrances were going to be closed. The newspaper hasn't told anybody because nobody's told them about Foch Street. Is it going to be one way or two way? I've had them at the project. I've asked them, is this two way? And they went, yeah. Well, if it is, it's going to be a disaster. And I hate to see this. I love this city. I enjoy living here. And I'm really concerned about some of the irresponsible things that your shops are doing. I even offered free gratis to teach your people on traffic signage and safety. And they always told me, oh no, we know what we're doing. Well, they don't. And I still offer, but I can't do it without being allowed to. And that's my thoughts.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Russell?
Forgive me, I thought that the public comment I didn't realize was not included in this. While looking at the list of prospective projects, I couldn't help but notice of the 20 projects that there was little mention of shade or green infrastructure. Tree New Mexico would like to work with the city to include trees into future projects when appropriate. So just one example being the Lee Bell Johnson facility improvements. There was a removal of, I think it was 3 or 4 Vitex trees. And so we would like to work with the city to replace those trees. And that is all. Thank you again for your time. The remaining comment from before is applicable for this.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I did receive 2 additional comments to plant more trees. So thank you for that. Any other comments for the ICIP? Having none, I'll close this session. Okay, we'll keep those comments in mind. We've made notes and to that agenda item later on. Right now, we're going to go to reports. City manager.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to early in May and summer's on us, and it's going to be great. Several different projects, and I think we have, and so I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. Last week, Brendan from our streets department, myself attended the Dam Owners Watershed Conference for 3 days. Really a fantastic conference. Really, I'm very glad that I went. Always good to see the perspective of how water and watershed affects all the way throughout New Mexico. A lot of talk about, you know, just the lack of precipitation and those issues, and then finding a lot of resources. So we're going to begin doing some work. Remember, you guys we own 3 dams that we're responsible for: Marie Street, St. Anne's, and then the Cuchillo Negro. And we'll begin doing some work to try to update those. Now, as you know, we have applied for, we did apply for state funding, and we received $350,000 to start designing Marie Street so we can improve the drive lane. But in that, we want to do a study on the dam so that we can understand its kind of history and what's going on with it and how we need to maintain it better. So we'll begin working on that. Was excited to really want to thank, Bar 2 Sand and Gravel, and those of you that saw the parade last week were surprised by a helicopter flying down the street. That helicopter is the gift from the U.S. Army to the Veterans Memorial Park. We've had that helicopter for just over a year. Unfortunately, we had to put it at the airport for storage. We worked in partnership with the Veterans Wall. They were able to get it painted. And through a little private partnership, we're going to put together a temporary stand. And so hopefully by Memorial Day, the helicopter will be on display at the Veterans Wall. Just need to finish that up. And that, again, just want to reconfirm, this will be a temporary situation. We're going to mount it on a trailer and then do some protection so that it could potentially avoid any abuse that could happen. You know, those things happen at museums, but really thankful to have that for the community, and thank you to the Veterans Wall for that. I think Becca spoke about the summer events coming. We have a meeting later today to kind of bring all that together, and just want to thank Becca personally, and then really Main Street second for you know, kind of taking on some of the visions that I've had. She's kind of accepted some of that and then taken it beyond what I could have imagined. So I think the community is going to have a really good summer season from Fiesta all the way to Christmas. I think we're going to have some great events going on to help not only visitors, but our residents enjoy. So I'm excited about that. The mayor attended a Colonius meeting last week. We presented again for $1.3 million. We requested for Fote Street. Not Fote Street, excuse me, Marie Street. Truly recognize how poor condition that is. We hope that the funding would get us far down the road, really to remove the milling off the top, repave, and then add sidewalks. That particular street does not have a lot of water infrastructure. The water infrastructure is at the top of beyond from Copra up. So, and we really don't have any major water or sewer there. So we did make that application. We felt very good. There was a lot of folks in the Colonius presentation, but we're excited about that. And again, we already have 350 to begin the designing and plan as soon as the legislature releases those contracts, which we always anticipate July or August before that happens. Teams working hard on the animal shelter. So we wanted to get the police department in order. We've received bids. We're in the process of evaluating bids for the police department. And then the plan was to then release the team on the animal shelter to start that. So we have our design architect working. The team is, coming up with concepts. So hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll have the layout, the plan, and be ready. I'm not sure on that one if we're going to go to bid or, we're going to kind of be a little more open with that to get that done as quickly as we can. This morning, I checked the water leak list. We're at 16 leaks. The leaks just continue to be a challenge for us. The construction crew on the 9th Street project did complete the first phase of that. And obviously we had some challenges as they were hooking the new line into the old lines. And then every time we shut off valves and we turn on valves, it creates water hammers, it creates vibration in the system, it creates breaks. So we just are in this cycle of, just trying to learn, what happens when we do that? How do we get that, stay ahead of that process? One of the challenges that the system does have is, it's been a challenge for 4 or 5 years, and many of the valves don't function. So when we go to shut off one area where we feel like we're going to be in a 4 or 5 block area, it doesn't work, and we're having to extend out. So, we understand clearly the challenges that we have, but we'll continue to work on trying to stay up with that. Let me see. We've had several complaints. Again, Marie Street remains in poor condition. The crew are out there today. We had a roller issue. The roller broke down. I authorized a rental of one last week. So we've rented a roller for the week. We've got that back on, and the crew are going to make a hard push this week to try to address as many potholes as we possibly can and try to get that going. And then just a briefing on Fote Street. Fote Street remains moving along well. That is a 180-day project. It's not scheduled to be finished till July. The crew expects to have 100% of the curbs poured by next Friday. Once the curbs are in place, the last piece in the street that needs to be fixed is a manhole. The manhole at the bottom is about 12 inches higher in the new road configuration. That's already approved, so they'll be in and get that done. So we anticipate within 30 days, the road should begin to be started paving. And just to clarify the information, that is a two-way street. It's a 24-foot drive lane from curb to curb. Just so that information gets out. The primary function after we get the curbs there will be, it's a lot of landscaping. So primarily once the road is put in place, we'll have just a lot of side curb and work done. So everything is, in our view, is going as well as we can on Fote Street. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Sure.
Sounds good.
All right, we remain very busy and just a variety of things happening throughout the city. Our police chief didn't make it today, so we'll get him the next time. They remain pretty busy, so let's start with our department head reports. And let's start with, where's my list? Start with the Jocelyn, because she's here at the table. And she made the auditor appear.
I'm just gonna basically recap that we have completed we're at the final stages of the numbers for the interim budget. And we'll be presenting that to you at our next commission meeting so that we can forward it to the state. Where I issued a memo to the staff yesterday to let them know to turn in the requisitions and to start closing out open purchase orders so that we can start reconciling for the end of fiscal year. We'll do the budget freeze for May 22nd. That does not mean purchasing stops. If something comes up, we'll address it and move forward, but it's to minimize so we don't have so much reconciliation for the end of fiscal year. And then final budgets are due to the state on July 31st, so we'll have another meeting with all for the final budget approval after DFA approves the interim. DFA made some changes this year on the interim. They would like IT policies and the credit card policy. We have worked with our IT on the IT policy, and we'll hopefully have that finalized for the next commission meeting as well, so we can all send that up together. And we already did the credit card policy, so we'll be just attaching that. And then for the new fiscal year ending is June 30th. Fiscal year beginning is July 1. That's the calendar years for the way municipalities are ran. And then when we open in July 1, we will have, let me backtrack on that second meeting in June, we will have the list of the larger items for commission approval, so we can move forward with those requisitions and purchase orders for continuing services on contracts and agreements. And then on the second week of July, we'll start with the regular day-to-day functions of the budget. And then one of the other things that we're looking at is to have mandatory training for staff, because there's new directors and staff that either have not been taught correctly on how to enter time or how to do time approvals. And with Karina's and Alona's process, they're having to take time in processing payroll, make corrections. So we've had a discussion and we feel that the staff needs to be trained correctly as well. It's another Tyler function. So that's one of the things we're going to be implementing in the near future. And I stand for any questions.
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Let's hear from Alona in HR.
Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners. Just a few updates. The state aligned our benefit year with the fiscal year. So we did have an open early enrollment in April. We had about 20 employees make changes to their benefits. That's up from about 5 to 6 a year. We also had open interviews for lifeguards. We hired 5 individuals. We have another round of interviews tomorrow. We'll be interviewing 7 candidates. We also had interviews for seasonal positions. We hired 4 individuals. We had 2 start this week and 2 will start next week. So all our positions for the seasonals are filled. And then we currently have 6 open positions. 1 is on hold and we are interviewing next week for the other, or for another one. And questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we have candidates.
It's going along really good.
Yes.
Feeling great. Okay, solid waste, Andy and Wes, or Wes and Wes.
Morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Got a little bit for you guys. Start with the nitty gritty. I've got some numbers from the Earth Day cleanup. Just get my papers in order. All right. So out of those 4 days, we were surprised and shocked to see that Monday and Tuesday were the busiest days. Tuesday being the busiest, and I think the consensus was it's gonna be too busy on Friday and too busy on Saturday. So all the customers came out Monday and Tuesday. Seemed like at least. But for the most part, out of the free customers, we had 318 from the city of Truth and Consequences and 39 from the village of Williamsburg, which totals out to 357 customers in total who used the free Earth Day cleanup. We had 113.24 tons, which equates to 226,480 pounds of solid waste. It's a good amount of waste. That would be 5.66 trailers. So we calculated based off the weight that a 53-foot walking trailer sends to Las Cruces, which is about 40,000 pounds. So calculating the weights, about 5.66 trailers went out from just the free cleanup. County brought in 50.37 tons, which equates to 100,740 pounds. We had a pretty successful birthday, I would say. We would like to thank all city staff for their help with the cleanup event. It would have been a lot more difficult for sure without the assistance from everybody that came out. We really appreciate it. We also like to recognize the volunteers who participated, such as Sustainable TRC and the Thunder and Hose 4-H group. On another note, we have a new employee who started Monday. He has great experience in the sanitation field, and he does have a CDL, which is a big plus. As well, we also have applied for the RAID grant with Sustainable TRC. It's for community outreach and education on our recycling program. On June 15th through the 19th, we'll find out whether we have received the RAID grant or not. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions? Nice report.
Beautiful.
Well,
Thank you.
for your help at Fiesta, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having it. We had a great time.
Mayor, just also want to comment and just, again, thank the staff, really thank Andy West, the team, those guys, gals there worked really hard. They put together a good process to get that. Clearly, we recognize, we'll do a debrief. We're going to set up a training, I think early in June. We're going to get the team, we're going to get all the staff there and just kind of talk about what the good, the bad, the ugly. But I think overall you could see we significantly made a difference in our community. We were able to get a lot more residents in. So it was smoother. It was a good process. So hopefully we can build on this, get some momentum, and then next year again in April, kind of do something very similar. And then again, thanks to all the staff. I mean, on Monday, I think the crew was just shocked at how many people. It was just amazing. And the streets department, we just made phone calls and everybody just showed up. We figured it out, and they just got through it. So really kudos to them on that. It's a good effort on their parts.
Great. Thanks.
So let's hear from the library.
Good morning. During the month of April 2026, the number of people who visited the library was 1,585, 79 of these at the branch. We checked out 845 books and other items, and we issued 12 new library cards. During April, our Storytime and Crafts program, held on Wednesdays at 10:30, welcomed a total of 107 children and adults for crafts and reading. We have added adult, senior, craft hour on Mondays, and it appears to be growing nicely. 38 attended in April. On Friday each month, we have added an edition for all ages, and this one is held at the branch. And we have 9 attendants in April. In addition to these, we had our STEM Kids program, 47 people, our Easter egg hunt, 33 people, and our Free Tree Neighborhood Forest program, 26 people. That brings our total program attendance for April to 260, and we're proud of it. Our software manufacturer, the Library Corporation, has set the completion date for our software upgrade and our server switch for the weekend of June 6th and 7th. No library staff or tech support will be needed to present at the library for the operation. The work will be done by remote from their home base in West Virginia. 3 of our staff have attended a 2-hour class on the use of the new system. And after all the upgrades are completed, we will take 1 more online class to be sure we're ready to take everything live. And that's done, and we'll be really glad. And that is all I have, if there's no questions.
Questions? Thank you so much.
Which is great. And then finally, the golf course is up for report. Bob was pretty full this morning, so I told him I would kind of fill in. We were out there. We're obviously summer. This is the season. The work that was done in the winter is beginning to take hold. We've got a lot of new sprinklers up there working. Nice to report that today the golf course is working on all 9 greens, so we have no temporary greens, which is an effort from Bob and the crew up there over the winter to get those greens back. So really excited. We've got all the equipment is returning from being maintained. So, all the equipment we sent up to Albuquerque to have it serviced. Unfortunately, one of the pieces could not make it off life support, but we did find a workaround for that. So everything will be in good working order at the golf course. We feel like we're in good shape. If you remember a few months back, we readjusted the memberships. We added some memberships. I'm happy to tell you that I think we've already sold 4 new memberships. So we've doubled our members, which is good. So people are liking the ability to buy, on a monthly basis. So things there seem to be on track and in order, in budget. And so hopefully, just as it gets hotter, it begins to turn greener and greener. So we'll see where we go from there. So
good. Thank you.
All right. And with that, that would conclude Mayor. Members of the commission, that would conclude our reports.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's move on to commission reports. Who would like to start?
Oh, I'm always okay. Yeah, Fiesta is over. It's the biggest event of the year. We made it, and I want to say thank you here to everybody who came and supported Fiesta, and especially I want to bring out a big thank you for all the volunteers. Everybody. It is here mind-blowing that each year you're getting up very early to help organize, to be there, to host, You also, with my organization, Talk Harbor, did an amazing job doing music at our events. And it was a full success. And I'm really grateful that we have such a great community where so many people are willing to pretty much serve everybody, that everybody can escape for a little bit for a weekend and just enjoy life, enjoy what we provide. And like you heard throughout the year, we are planning multiple events and it's something to look forward to. And thank you to everybody. And I also, in my coffee shop, we had multiple guest golfers visiting town as well. And I promised that I say thank you to Bob for doing, and city manager for doing a great job with the golf course. They are happy. They said here they came before, and the difference between then and now is significant, and they are very happy about it. And they promised that each time and they're in the area that they will utilize our golf course because of the state what it is. And so the fruits of labor is there, and they especially said that Bob was very friendly and yeah, explained everything, and they were just happy to be here and were able to have a good game as well. And so that's it. There's multiple things still going on. So yeah, thank you very much for everything you guys do and your involvement and willingness to really be part of our community, while community is important these days.
Thank you. Mr. Klein?
Morning. First off, I just wanted to also echo what Ingo just said, give a big shout out to everybody who helped make Fiesta a big success this past weekend. The weekend before. I really liked the red, white, blue theme. It was a lot of fun. Floats were awesome. Throughout the whole thing. Great parade, great turnout. Even though we got rained on quite a bit, but events were well organized. That was really nice to see too. There was a good flow of things throughout the entire city. It's good for businesses all across the city. Thanks to all the volunteers, organizers, city staff to put in the work to make it happen. I wanted to also mention the space race out of Spaceport America last weekend. Great seeing events like that, bring positivity to town, some attention for our area. On the infrastructure side, I'm glad to see the roadwork and water systems projects moving forward. I know the construction brings headaches with the road closures and again, we said last time. Better water lines, safer streets make a difference for us in the long run. I keep hearing from residents that water reliability, road repairs, traffic safety are still the biggest priorities. Fixing leaks, problems taken care of, or potholes taken care of. Dealing with gravel roads that need repaving and slowing down traffic in neighborhoods. I do get good feedback though that people are seeing improvements. Still more work to do. I appreciate the updates and direction we're heading though. I'm still encouraging everyone to reach out if you have concerns or ideas. Email directly. I do read every one of them, take them seriously. Public input does matter. And that's all for me. Good morning.
Mitchell?
So yeah, I will do just another quick shout out. Thank you to everybody for Fiesta. This is the first time it's ever rained on Fiesta in my knowledge, going back to 1986. So that was definitely something. This is the longest parade that I've ever organized, that I've ever really seen. It was bigger than last year, and probably because it was an election year, but either way, I thought it was a really good parade and a good turnout all weekend. So many people had positive interactions and great stories. So kudos to the city of TRC and the Main Street and all the volunteers. It was really well executed. So much for Fiesta Light, right, Rolf?
Yeah. Never works that way.
I did want to give an update to, attended the Sustainable TRC meeting last week. I helped with getting the, writing the RAID grant, and then the crew executed it. We had originally written another grant through AARP, and we just, that was back in March. We just found out we did not get that one. But we're still looking at trying to find funding to educate the community on recycling and sustainability. And really this year, the focus of that program is just to educate everybody from kids to adults on what you can and can't recycle and reduce the amount of waste going to our landfills. And then finally, working closely with Parks and Rec Department, getting the swimming pool up and running. It opened on April 24th. The new fee structure of only $1 per session has worked out very well. We had well over 120 people on Mother's Day alone. I was joking when I posted, hey, bring your mom to the pool, and then everybody brought their mom to the pool. But it was really cool. I mean, it was really great. The water's great. Alona said we're in the middle of, we've got 5 lifeguards. We're trying to get some more on there. Expanding the hours over June and July, so 7 days a week. Right now, we just appreciate the public saying, you said get open, we're open, but we can't be open 7 days a week yet. We gotta wait till school was out. Currently hiring a pool manager, or in interviewing or processing that. But so basically just you know, getting ready for summertime. So that's
One more thing you should talk about is the ribbon cutting for the skate park.
Oh, yes, I will talk about
We don't have to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, so the skate park at Ralph Edwards Park was completed the weekend before, or the week before Fiesta, and on Sunday, Fiesta, May 3rd, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we had Parks Department and Mayor Hester and myself and several of the skateboard competitors and the skateboard contest organizers for Fiesta and Miss Fiesta herself show up and do a dedication for the brand new skate park, thanks to the City of TRC Park and Rec Department for getting that completed. The skaters had an amazing time. They said it's a wonderful place to be envious of even larger cities around us. So kudos to everybody in the city for getting that.
And would you say a little something about the biggest comment we got at Fiesta was moving back to the park?
Yes, I will talk to that.
Can we talk just a little bit about that?
So in the history of Fiesta from 1950 to 2000, it's been downtown. It was at the PNC Bank parking lot. It was at the Bank of the Southwest. It was a downtown celebrate. They moved it to the park in 2001 or so after Ralph Edwards passed, and just took everything down there where there's shade and everything like that. For the next probably 10, 15 years, it was okay. It was one weekend a month. It really did kind of trample the grass and break sprinkle heads, and it was really crowded. There was no parking and there was mosquitoes, but we did it, and a lot of people remember that. However, from 2010 to 2020, more organizations started utilizing the park throughout the year, farmers market, events, and so forth. And as we saw, that park got destroyed, and we've spent well over how much money on it? Over $500,000 trying to get it back to being green again. And for everyone, I think their comments, and I remember it fondly in the park as well, but taking a festival that is this size and cramming it into that space is going to completely destroy what we've already worked so hard to rebuild. However, at the Fiesta debrief meeting, we did discuss possibly moving certain portions of Fiesta to the park and spreading it out throughout the downtown. So that is underway, and we thank everybody for their feedback, and we encourage everybody to join the Fiesta board next year. Bring your feedback, implement those things with us, but that is sort of a nutshell history of how Fiesta destroyed Ralph Edwards Park and then we brought it back.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna keep my report brief because I farmed everything out. But Fiesta, I think it's probably one of the most successful Fiestas we've had in years, so we're great for that. What changed for me in this Fiesta was the level of cooperation between the city crews, the staff, facilities was involved, parks and recreation was involved, sanitation was involved, streets was involved. They all worked in concert, they all worked together. And it turned out to be a great Fiesta. There's a lot less stress involved with it. It worked a lot smoother. And so leadership matters. Gary, thank you for that part of it, but you also have great leaders. And so with that, and it all working in a nutshell, working together, it provided us with the great Fiesta. I can tell how much the Fiesta was attended because the trash cans were all full by Saturday afternoon. So I know we had a large amount of people there, and I think again I had to empty a lot of trash cans from that park and put them in the big dumpster, but we got it done, and it's a great Fiesta. So thank you guys for that. In addition to Fiesta, I did a couple of presentations. The most recent one was to the North Regional Transportation and Planning Organization about our road diet and about our roundabouts, and we talked a little bit about the do's and the don'ts and the processes and things of that nature, encouraging other municipalities around the state to apply for those NMDOT funds. And I think we got that accomplished. As Gary mentioned, we attended the Colonias project. We did have to go through a waiver process. We received the waiver because we have two other Colonias projects that are in mid-process that weren't quite far enough ahead yet in order, so we had to go through the process, but we had substantial movement and we were able to articulate that. So good job on that, Tracy, for getting that paperwork together for us. And I think our presentation was successful. We'll know in a couple of days. I think the 14th is when I remember the date was supposed to be come out.
So I think it's June though.
Is it in June? June 14th. So we'll hear in a month or not. We got that 1.3 million that we asked for. I think we did a good presentation. I think it's gonna happen. We'll see. We'll report on it when it does. I attended the baby box ribbon cutting with several of our representatives and senators. We have one of the few baby boxes in the state. It's something that Hope we never need, but if we do, saving that one life will make a difference, and I'm glad we can say that we have one of ours at the state. It's located at Sierra Casada. And in closing, I did write a letter to Representative Black with economic development at the state and invited him to our communities to talk about economic development. I haven't heard yet the response. He was traveling with the governor at the time, but when he does come to our community, I plan on getting together with the mayor of Elephant Butte, our county chairman, myself, and Representative Black, talk about things that matter to our community and county as a whole. And hopefully we'll get some traction out of that. So that's what I've been doing. That concludes my report. Let's move on to city attorney. Do you have a report, sir?
Good morning, and actually, I do. I have a report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to consent calendar. Item H. H1, City Commission regular minutes for April 8th, 2026. Item H2, City Commission budget workshop minutes for April 14th, 2026. H3, City Commission regular minutes for April 22nd, 2026. H4, April 2026 accounts payable, and H5, acknowledged purchase reports of items under $60. Those are our consent calendar. Do we have any questions or concerns concerning our calendar?
No. Motion to.
Okay, I'll second that motion. A motion and a second.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Todd Glenn.
Aye. Carried then. Before we move on to new business, let's take a 5-minute break. So take care of it.
You can have my copy. I only have one though.